Where is it? Hello? Over, where's... Oh, here, Crushing Blow. Like, this is fine, right? This is okay. The problem with this hand, or not hand, the problem with this deck is Goddess's Blessing doesn't really benefit that many cards. So, if you think about it, right, if I had two upgraded Gale Force, which I don't, they're both already Forceful Quick, so they don't have the next turn benefit, so that's already lost value. You have Vortex, which benefits, so that's one card. Um, Crushing Blow gets next turn, that's two cards, and then Hellstorm would be three. So that's three cards of value in an 8-card deck off of Goddess's Blessing. So there's just a lot of missed opportunity there. Yes, when you draw Storm Shield, it does give you a resist stack, but that's not really what Goddess's Blessing is doing. So this is like one problem. And then you have the other problem of Overload. So Overload gives Strengthened on redraw, right? The problem with Strengthened, if you've ever noticed or wondered, it doesn't interact with Forceful Knockback or Knockback almost at all. It bumps the damage so minorly because of how Knockback and Forceful is calculated without a base damage coefficient. And by base damage coefficient, I mean something like, say, just for example, Whip, right? Whip has a damage coefficient and it's a Forceful Knockback. So Whip would highly benefit from Strengthened, whereas Vortex and Gale Force do not. So you only have three cards in the deck that benefit from Goddess's Blessing, and you have only Crushing Blow and Hellstorm that benefit from Overload, right? And it's, yeah. So this sort of mixed version of Storm is a mistake. What you want to do instead is either commit to Arcs plus Overload or Knockbacks plus Storm Shield. Okay? So what I mean by that is if you're running DPS, let me just grab a second arc because I need to do this anyway. I had this on my last run, but I haven't seen a second arc since.
What are we building today? Hydro.
Okay.
Until next time.
What you want to do instead is something more like two arcs, Goddess's Blessing, Overload, Hellstorm, and then you would run probably one Gale Force. That's what, six? Yeah, six. And then Crushing Blow, and then your last card would be either a something like a second Gale Force, this is fine, or a second Crushing Blow slash Call the Lightning. It's up to you. Um, yeah. And the reason why this is better as the DPS variation is because now if you look at the deck, Arc times 2 benefits from Overload, so that's 2. One Gale Force just to have it quick. Can't really go wrong there, so that's just good to have. And then Crushing Blow, 3, Call the Lightning, or another Crushing Blow, 4, Hellstorm, 5. So that's now 5 cards that would benefit from your single use of Goddess's Blessing. And then if you draw into Overload, you can redraw for Strengthen anyway, so you could argue that that benefits too. So now the entire deck benefits from Goddess's Blessing, and then 5 of the cards benefit from Strengthened, rather than only 3. So, uh, this is how I would play DPS Storm, because Arc with Overload is actually good. And then, yeah, alternatively, it's like just go full knockbacks. Right, double Gale, double Vortex, Goddesses, and then how many cards am I at? 1, 2, 3, 7. This would be the support build, or something akin to this. Oh, whoops, sorry. There we go. Something like this would be what I would run as a support build. And then you can maybe mess with your attacks. Like you could cut Gale Force to 1, or Vortex to 1 and put in a second Storm Shield or a second Live Wire if you felt so inclined. But I know that was long-winded, but like I think people are looking at Storm too like holistically. I think it's like no, you really like Venom. It's very Venom-esque. It's like if you're going support Venom, you don't run Assimilation, and if you are running DPS Venom, or if you're running DPS Venom, you run Assimilation. Storm is the exact same. If you're running DPS Storm, you are completely missing value if you aren't running 2 copies of Arc and an Overload, and if you're going support, you're missing. You're completely wasting your time by even having Overload in the deck. Now, I want to preface, if you happen to run the DPS version, where here, okay, if you're running this or something like it, not Storm Shield, there we go. Then what you can do instead is if you mod your Gale Force or you get a Gale Force which has gain strengthened on KO, definitely then I would cut Overload and put in Storm Shield just because it's so good. Like it's just so strong. Now, if you don't need resist at all and you're just like two-shotting everything, well, obviously it's useless. So you wouldn't run it. And in that case, I would just run a third heroic, be that a Call the Lightning, a second Crushing Blow, whatever. And then just run one skill card, Goddess's Blessing. But I don't really like to talk about mods because it's not really consistent. And when you start talking highly modded decks, it's like you run the same shit on every card. Quick, free, whenever you can. Like, conceal, strengthened, there. That's it. That's all you're running. It's not, there's really no conversation. Hope that makes sense. Now, how I build the character, or how I intend to build the character, is both ways for testing purposes, but I'm a big proponent of knockbacks, and I don't like Overload. I'm going to rework this card eventually. So I'm more leaning into the supportive elements, and I'm not quite there yet. I don't have, like I said, I don't have my arcs upgraded yet to try the DPS variation as much as I'd like to. Goddess's Blessing as well. I need to upgrade that. Maybe I'll do that after this mission since we get that epic blueprint. So for now, we'll run what I was running before. But yeah, hopefully that makes some sense. This is close enough to what I had. Oh, I had Overload, but I don't really want it. This is fine. Okay. I will also say that on the mod, I plan on giving Storm base damage coefficients on, probably, yeah, just Vortex, not Gale Force, but Vortex. And then that'll make it benefit from Strengthened, so that will also change the dynamic of the decks on the mod a little bit, in that it'll make it more cohesive. Because I think it's kind of crappy that if you do want to use Overload, it's like right now, only your heroics really benefit. I just think that kind of sucks. And knockbacks with no coefficient are majority of the time pretty bad. So now this is Operations Assault, which means frags for days. So let's run an eco. We'll show off some of those changes. Storm, and then it's epic cards. So I really still need Insatiable.